All right, if you're like me, you might dread creating a social media plan, especially when it comes to planning out for the whole year. Where should your company be? What platform should you go all in on? Where should you be spending money? Should you partner with influencers? All of those questions are going to arise. So what I want to do is walk you through the step-by-step on how to create a social media plan, no matter what size your company is, and how to actually roll out each of those steps. So little context, I'm Jordan Shelton. I have run the social media agency K for the last 12 years. We've worked with Fortune 500 companies, worked with mom and pop shops. It's been a wild ride in that 12 years. But in that time, we've seen a lot of what works, what doesn't. Trends hit us in the face and other ones pass us by. So what we're going to do, we're going to break down where to go, where to start. The first thing you need to do when it comes to creating your social media plan is find out where your customers are. What I mean by that is the platforms where they hang out. If your customers are Gen Z, that means, you're going to have to look at YouTube Shorts, Reels, TikTok, the SEO, Snapchat. Those are the areas and places they're going to be. If they're a little older, millennials, all right, you might see X, Facebook, Instagram, or Threads, YouTube still. And that's going to be different for each generation you look at. That's the first thing. Find out where your customers hang out, because that's going to give you a good indication on where your brand should be active on social. And what you can do on this is actually start analyzing your previous sales data and build out buyer personas. So, okay, who are the type of people who buy from your company? Where do they hang out? So then you can go, okay, we need to be on LinkedIn. We don't need to be on Facebook, because this is not only an exercise in finding out where your customers are, it's also an exercise in finding out where you don't need to be. Because one of the things that can hamper a social media plan right from the outset is trying to pick too many platforms to be on when you don't have the appropriate resources to actually fulfill and act on those platforms accordingly. Anytime there's a new shiny object that comes in, it could be TikTok, it could be the app Be Real, anything like that. If you increase the amount of platforms you post on without increasing your resources internally, you're now stretching, that person or that department a little bit further. And what's going to happen is when somebody tries to create content for all the platforms, they're actually going to dilute the content and it's not going to perform on any of them. So I always say, find out where your customers are, pick those 2 or 3 channels and really look at how you can execute as best as possible on those channels. And then as you start to grow, you've really nailed it on, let's say, Instagram. Great. Now you can add in another channel as you add in resources for that channel as well. Number 2, we want to understand how your customers use your product in different situations. Let's take something like non-alcoholic beer, for instance. Now, you would have one audience, which is people who don't drink alcohol, right? That is part of the persona. Then you have other people who are maybe taking a day off drinking. But if we can go a step further and think, in what situations would somebody use this product? Maybe they're going over for a barbecue with their friends. They're going to watch football all day. They want to have a couple beers and then have non-alcoholic so they can drive home. Okay, that is us understanding a use case. And once we do that, we can create content that resembles that actual interaction the way that the person would use the product. So this is huge. Thinking about how they use the product. How does it solve for their situations that they're in? How does it enhance their life? All of those things. We want to start to answer those questions before we create content. This is going to stop us from being too reactionary in our content or making too many assumptions, right? So it's easy to say in the non-alcoholic beer example to go, oh, that person doesn't drink at all, so now we're going to market them non-alcoholic beer. When in reality, they're just a little bit more flexible with their beer consumption. Sometimes they have alcohol, sometimes they don't. Okay, we need to understand how to bring that market in and not alienate them. All right, number 3. This one is funny, but it's the hardest to do and probably the most straightforward simultaneously, and that is defining which KPIs will measure success for you as the marketer. So you need to sit with your executive team, understand what makes the business go and how social can help push those numbers. Because the minute there's an economic downturn, marketing, social media, we are the first to get chopped. So we need to make sure that we are close to the revenue and we understand our impact on it. So all that to be said, figure out what your KPIs are, get it in writing with your executive team. Hey, this is what we're going to do. We're going to increase engagement rate by this much. We're going to increase follower count by this much. I got my targets. Great. Because if you don't, the KPIs will change on you depending on your executive's mood or quarterly results. So we really want to lock those in before we're subject to a yearly review. All right, number 4, having a system for content creation. If you're just relying on creative bursts to make content that aligns with the brand, 1, kudos to you, but 2, you're really doing it in an inefficient manner. when it comes to content creation. So instead, use a system for content creation. This outlines the type of content you're going to make, who's going to be responsible for each part of that, and what platforms it's going to go on, etc. You can grab the exact system we use below in the description. It's called the Social System 1.0. We use this with brands all across the US and Canada. So you can take it, it's got a Notion template, and implement it for yourself right away. That way you'll be able to create content consistently, with the system in behind you. So it'll really cut through a lot of the inefficiencies. Next, number 5, and this is create content pillars. So our last video was actually on this, which was how to create pillars. But you want to create themes and topics that you can come back to and build content around. These are going to be the things that your brand leans into and leans on when you don't have ideas, or when you do have ideas. We want to make sure that they tie back to the pillars. So typically I recommend companies have 3 to 4 pillars that they really lean on. And those themes and topics can be really expansive, but we want to look at those and go, all right, does the content that we create connect to one of these pillars? Amazing. Then we can start publishing. And make sure to check out that video. We will link it below too on content pillars and which ones we recommend for companies. All right, number 6, moonshot marketing, some social media moonshots. Moonshots, these are things, I like to plan them quarterly, but it is something that, hey, if it happens, you end up going viral, or it ends up having a massive return for the business, but there's a really good probability that it won't be successful. This keeps you in a state of experimenting, and 2, really flexes the creative muscle, and then 3, when it does work, provides outsized returns to the brand. So be thinking, what are those big things you could do on social media? Is that getting a massive creator to endorse your product? Is it interviewing somebody? Is it getting your executive team on a podcast? What is that thing? You want to outline it and then go after it. All right. And we're going to talk about number 7. Okay, number 7 on your social plan is building community. So this is taking it one step further than just posting to followers, hoping for engagement, but actually looking at how we can build community. That might mean something as simple as, hey, if you want a free guide from my company, join my close friends list on Instagram. Then you're going to get access to it. Or it could be using platforms more in depth. It could be starting contests. It could be actually responding to every single person in your comments. It could be starting the broadcast channels on Instagram and then resharing content of people who've used your product. Really thinking about ways to build community that can also help grow your brand. All right, number 8. We want to think about creator and influencer partnerships. So we want to outline these. In a perfect world, what are the creators that we want to work with? Now, once you get that list and align it with your budget, you can go and start to foster those relationships. We personally recommend getting creators to actually post on your brand account or collaborate with the brand account. That's going to give you access to the insights, and you'll be able to see, which creators really strike through to your audience, not just get a bunch of engagement, on their own posts. So there is a difference. We want to make sure that we find people who really align with the brand. All right, number 9. This one is usually you don't need it till you need it, but that is having a crisis management plan. Figure out what happens and who's going to be responsible, what the order of operations is if somebody attacks the brand or if there's a brand crisis. That could be a recall on your product. It could be a disgruntled customer that goes nuclear on social. What are you going to do? What are the frameworks? Who's responsible for what? And when will legal be involved? Have a plan, because when it actually happens, you want to make sure that you're able to act accordingly and make sure that, hey, everybody knows this is a code 2, aka that means we need legal on the phone in the next hour. Having those things outlined before and how you're going to handle things can be really, really, really important when the crisis actually starts to happen, because otherwise it can be stressful. You might make an error or make an issue bigger than it is, or you might be hot-headed and you might respond back when you probably should have let it cool down or let somebody else respond. So make sure you have a plan. And next, what you want to do, and this is huge, figure out your budget. You need a budget for, 1, paid media, because paid media has to support the organic. Otherwise, the organic's not going to go anywhere. That's just the truth when it comes to content. 2, what is your media budget for production? And then 3, what is your budget for contracted help? And we want to look at all of those things and make sure that we're able to secure that for the year, so you can go out and get the right vendor partners. You can make sure that you can actually do some longer form production and have that really, really facilitate the social media. Because without budget, you're just shooting blind every single month. And we want to make sure that we're putting the dollars really to work, and then we can evaluate that too. The next year, you can go, hey, look, we spent money on influencer partnerships. It did really well. Let's get some more money for that. Or, we did a paid media campaign for a product launch. Didn't go so well. Now we know next time we're not going to spend as much there. So really be thinking about money as that last lever, but maybe the most important lever to pull when it comes to distribution in your content. All right, I hope that helped you build out a social media plan. Check out more of the videos on my channel that go into depth on social media strategies. Hit that like, share, subscribe, all that, and I will catch you next time.